All right, next question. Interesting. I think we were just talking about this in our Patreon and Float Plane exclusive live stream.
I'll
So,
just copy and paste that, and then I'll have a break for a minute.
yeah, that'd be easy. But no, we'll go into it again.
All right, fine.
We are seeing mid-range parts go up in pricing, not just for graphics cards from $200 to $500, but motherboards and CPUs as well. $350 used to be the top of the line CPUs. Is this due to increase in complexity? And if so, as time goes on, will parts just keep getting more and more expensive to the point that very few people can even afford mid-range? So I think you've talked about this a lot in terms of, say, the high end of graphics card pricing. It really comes down to, in the high end, what are people willing to pay? And it's been proven over years with products like, the Titan line going into the 2080 Ti and now going into the RTX 3090, that consumers have money. There are certain people out there that are very well off, have lots of disposable income, and this is, PC gaming might be their main hobby, that are willing to spend ridiculously high amounts of money on products. So I think we will continue to see very high pricing at the top end because there's a market for people. It might be maybe a very small market, and maybe Nvidia or AMD only gives people 5% more performance or a very small amount more performance for a ridiculous price increase. But if the market is there for those people, then that is still going to exist.
Yep.
And they're going to keep testing the waters to say, we sold X amount of $1,500 GPUs. Can we push that up to $2,000? What can we do to increase that? But then at the same time, that doesn't necessarily mean that there will be no mid-range products, because what happens below that is very dependent on competition. And you need both brands, whether that's Intel versus AMD or AMD versus Nvidia, depending on CPUs or GPUs.
And they'll still overall make more money off the lower margin but much higher volume parts.
Yeah, that's right. You can't just not sell a $200 GPU because there are some people out there that can't afford a $300 GPU. So if you don't have a $200 offering, there's no sale there at all. So you're not making anything off those people.
That's right. When you spend hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars on developing a brand new architecture, and it can scale from your $2,000 product right down to your $200 product, it makes no sense not to offer the $200 product. It depends on what that product looks like. Like, is it a GT 1030 or is it like an RX 580 type product? But yes, they will do that. Obviously, right now, I guess this question comes about really because we haven't seen the sort of more what would you really call the mid-range type products to the low end.
Affordable products, yeah.
You're not seeing those because all the manufacturing capacity is on the big margin stuff. And if you're making a super expensive product that you make tons and tons of margin on, and you can't supply enough of them, that's obviously what your focus is going to be. Because as I just said, like why you normally have something like a Titan and then a high-end GeForce in the case of Nvidia, and then a low-end one is so you can satisfy all different price points in the market. Because there'll be people who will just be like, for this hobby that I do after hours, I can't justify spending more than $300 on a GPU, and that may be the mainstream market. So when you've got essentially unlimited volume to satisfy all of those different markets, you do. But at the moment, they don't. So
yeah, I mean, part of this, I think you're mentioning in this question, is this due to an increase in complexity? And part of price increases over time is going to be if, let's say, you need a lot more components on the board of the GPU, or a motherboard, power goes up and up, so you need to put better and better VRMs
just the manufacturing process is more difficult.
Manufacturing, the wafers may cost more. So all those things will affect that, but that still doesn't necessarily mean that there's not going to be a $200 product. It'll just mean that a $200 product may not give the same performance uplift from the previous generation as you'd be getting with a higher end product. So those mid-range entry-level products, which are obviously very popular, are not going to go away. It just requires a different market situation to what we're currently in. And as I was sort of alluding to, they will go away if there's no competition, because if you've got only one brand producing, let's say, entry-level GPUs, then they could just make that whatever they want because they're a monopoly. But if there's two brands, then there's always that price war. And that's where we've seen, even when AMD wasn't producing high-end GPUs, they tended to create a lot of competition in that, say, $200 to $500 price range, where they could undercut, and there's battles there happening, and that creates a really attractive market for people to buy into. So it depends on a lot of things, and hopefully AMD's getting much more competitive in GPUs, and the CPU market, as we know, is very competitive. So hopefully in the future that will bode really well actually for mid-range parts, and we should start seeing things trickling down, things getting better for buyers that want to be in this market.
Yeah, as I was saying earlier, even if it wasn't AMD didn't exist in the GPU space and it was just NVIDIA, well, that would certainly slow things down because you don't have that arms race. They still want to produce record sales every generation.
Yeah.
So
that means incentivizing someone that only has $250 to spend
right.
to buy their new graphics card because it's better than the
at the very least, they are competing with previous efforts.
Yeah, that's right. And being a publicly traded company, there's always shareholders that keep them accountable. So
definitely
that affects it as well.